Be commended that we're not Texas, that we're New York. Our country is home of the free, land of the brave. We do not become cowards and send people away that are looking for help.
So that was Democratic New York City Mayor Eric Adams, once again blaming Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey as an influx of migrants overwhelmed city resources here in New York. Well, Guy Benson is the political editor for townhall.com. He's a Fox News contributor. And, Guy, I think that takes a lot of basically ignorance, first of all. The governors of Texas and Arizona are not sending migrants to New York, Guy.
Yeah, a little bit of chutzpah there from the mayor of New York City. And we saw a similar complaint recently, Dana, from Mayor Bowser here in Washington, D.C., where migrants are being bused directly from Texas. And I can imagine Governor Ducey and Arizona Governor Abbott in Texas looking at these mayors and saying, okay, please break out the world's smallest violin for us here with your whining and whinging about having a tiny drop in the bucket of what our states and our communities at the border have been experiencing every single day, month after month after month, as a lot of these big city, blue city mayors cheer on the problem, declare themselves, you know, sanctuary cities and that sort of thing. Then when they get just a taste of what it's like, they come out complaining and attacking the border states and saying, oh, these straining our resources. Like, yeah, welcome to our world, say the border states and those leaders.
Abbott's spokesperson, Governor Abbott down in Texas, so his spokesperson said this, that Mayor Adams should check with President Biden if his administration is the one dumping migrants in his city, as they've been doing to Texas border towns for months. So, yes, the anger is misguided, though I think what's also interesting is you've heard rumors, I'm sure, that Mayor Adams might have aspirations for higher office one day. And there's this curious thing in politics of late where if you just fight, or if you call someone a name, or if you just want to be angry, like the left wants Biden to be much more angry all the time and to be angry and screaming and yelling, which doesn't accomplish anything. Imagine, Guy, if Eric Adams said, you know what, I'm going to go visit the Del Rio mayor. I'm going to go see what it's like down at a border town in Texas and have some appeal. Maybe be the first Democrat to go down to visit the border towns and actually see what's going on. There's never any sort of creative thinking in order to advance the ball here, Guy.
Well, if he did that, he might learn something, and we can't have that, right? You're right. I mean, look, it's a lot of tribal fighting. That's the name of the game. We see Governor Newsom in California presiding over so many failures, just punching it up with Ron DeSantis in Florida and other red state governors. That's his approach, I guess, to gaining national prominence. I think that whether it's Bowser or Adams or Newsom or anyone else, certainly Biden or Harris, they could go down to the border and try to actually ingest information by talking to people who work down there, people on the front lines, men and women trying to protect the country, trying to enforce the law with one hand tied behind their back because of these policies of the administration. We've had 4 consecutive months now in the United States, Dana, with 200,000 or more apprehensions at the border. And people say, oh, well, that means that the border's not open because people are getting caught. It's not completely open, but it is certainly not closed, and it is certainly not secure, because in each and every one of those months, as Bill Malugin chronicles all the time, there have been tens of thousands, sometimes north of 50,000 known gotaways, people who just escape into the country that we didn't have the resources or personnel to catch. And over the course of this administration, under this president, we are approaching, getting closer and closer to 1 million. Known gotaways, 1 million, which is much larger than the entire population, for example, of Delaware, the president's home state. So it is a massive problem. The crisis is raging. And to see this type of sniping, political sniping, with ignorance, out of ignorance, which was your word, and I agree with it, I think does nothing to help solve the problem.
Also, like, maybe just pick up the phone rather than put out a tweet or put out a press release. There's a thing called the phone. President Obama, remember that? Remember, he had a pen and a phone. Just quickly, I want to ask you about this Olympian who ditched America to compete for China. You might remember her in the Olympics, Eileen Gu. Well, okay, that's fine. That's her decision. But a new decision is coming forward, and that is she just won a big award, an ESPY award. What do you make of that?
Yeah, ESPN decided to bestow upon her a Breakout Athlete of the Year award. Do they mean breakout as in like breaking out of her American citizenship status? Because she renounced this country. She grew up here. She was trained here. She had all the privileges and amazing rights of being an American, went to Stanford, living a dream. But it wasn't enough. She wanted to go to China, communist China, which is hosting the genocide games, while they're actually prosecuting an active genocide, and go compete under their flag. So she gave up her citizenship here, saw dollar signs over there, and it's worked out well for her economically. I think a lot of Americans say, okay, I mean, that's a choice you made. I think morally a very questionable one. But do we need to celebrate that choice here in the United States of America, as ESPN did at the ESPYs? I don't think so, but that's what they chose to do.
All right. Guy Benson, thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.